can't have it because it's money. He goes his first day. I'm out with the two of me around because there's 2 courses there. Right? He came back with 100.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Board meeting for Tuesday, April the 16th, 2024. It's 10 a.m. This is a hybrid meeting. That means virtual and in person. And we will say that in person, we have member Ina Kahan here. And then virtually, we have member Matt Hall. I, John Brennan, am here as well. And then giving their regrets is Mayor Grantham and member Henry Biersma. And we have, of course, distinguished people here as well. We have, we'll introduce them as the meeting proceeds. So that's, I think, effectively roll call out of the way. Everybody who's here raised their hand, basically. And then to the approval of the agenda. Recommendation that the April 16th, 2024 Police Service Board meeting agenda be approved as circulated. And I'm just going to say, moved by Member Hahn and seconded by Member Hall. All those in favor, and that is passed. That's going to get a bit repetitive since there are only 3 of us. The movers and the seconders are just going to alternate. Number 3, declarations of pecuniary interest. Anyone have that? And for members of the audience, pecuniary interest means a financial advantage. It's a good word. Number 4, reading and correction approval of minutes. 4.1, the general meeting is minutes of March 19th, 2024. Recommendation that the minutes of the March 19th, 2024 general meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Board be approved as written. Moved by Member Hall, seconded by Member Hahn. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Okay. Feeling good about ourselves, moving along quickly through the agenda. And number 5, now we're on to presentations. And 5.1, I'm going to turn this over to the chief, certainly, to do the introductions. But this is part, I think, of this police board's ongoing effort to better understand the operations of our police force and to bring in distinguished members of our force to be presented by the chief and deputy chief to the board and the public so we understand what's going on. So I'll turn it over to the chief to do the introduction, and then we'll await the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Brennan. It's a real pleasure to introduce Detective Constable Chris Butts of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service. Chris has been with the service, I'm going to guess 6-7 years now?
2017,
7th year in policing. Chris was originally hired as a recruit who came to us to start his journey in the policing sector. He has worked in the uniform division, and 2 years ago, I believe it was selected to be transferred into our criminal investigation group, and comes with a tremendous work ethic, but also a very high skill set, specifically in the area of digital forensics and evidence gathering. So over the last year and a bit, with the support of the Police Services Board, the service has really undertaken a journey to research, investigate, and then acquire technology that really aids and assists our investigators, specifically our criminal investigators, not only in understanding the authorities for seizing devices, but the all-important extraction of evidence from digital devices. Some would say fortunately, some may say unfortunately, we live in a world currently where electronic devices are at the center of a lot of people's daily activities. There is a collection of personal information, there is a collection of records that people keep on their personal devices. And in some cases, some of these people use their devices while committing criminal offenses. That's where there's an intersection with the activities that Detective Constable Butts has, is that when those people intersect with our police service and are under arrest and we have the authorities to seize their devices, the real work starts, and that's where the collection of evidence comes in. So it's a great honor to introduce Chris. He's going to run through a short presentation to the board, and is certainly open to taking questions from the members, both here in person and virtually. So Chris, with that, I will I'll turn the floor and the microphone over to you. If you just hit your little button, you'll light up red.
Perfect. Thanks, Chief. Like Chief said, Chris Butts, Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service. In 2022, I started in the Criminal Investigations Division as a general investigator. That role has kind of evolved since then, as in early 2023, we kind of identified a need to start this journey, as the Chief described it, into digital forensics. Prior to that, standard operating procedure, when we got any kind of device, computer, phone, tablet, etc., that was involved in an investigation, we would get judicial authorization to search that device, certain data on the device. We would have to send it to OPP for their assistance. And that involved communication with the commissioner and some communication with their digital forensics unit in Aurelia. That liaising would take time. Eventually the devices would have to be packaged up and sent to Aurelia, and then it was kind of left with their digital forensics unit and we would just kind of wait. Sometimes it would be 3 to 4 months and we get something back. But it was upwards of sometimes 15 months before we would get anything back. And that's no fault on them, and we certainly appreciated their help. But I think that's just the reality of, as the Chief said, you can imagine you use your phone for almost everything these days, at least I do. And they're so intertwined with crime now that the OPP's backlog was increasing, I would imagine, exponentially. I don't have any specific stats for them, but I can only imagine that they have a literal vault of devices waiting to be analyzed. And that's from all over the province. So that presented some difficulties for us, obviously, the timelines there in disclosing things to the Crown and Defense Counsel in criminal investigations in a timely manner. And it was kind of becoming unsustainable, especially now that on February 1st of this year, we didn't know this was coming back then, but in addition to how busy things are in the courts, I think they're trying to address that, and they put some very serious time constraints on different levels of disclosure packages. One of those being digital evidence and what you get from devices that have been analyzed. And they've narrowed that down to 84 days, which 12 weeks or so, and you can kind of see how the 6 to 12 to 15 months wouldn't really be sustainable anymore. So, we kind of broached the subject of getting up and running with our own DFU unit. Chief and Deputy were very supportive, and that was quickly, acquired in early 2023. I spent a good portion of that year doing training to be ready to use all the software and equipment. And I became operational sometime in October of last year. We went from, like I said, a 4 to 15 month time frame down to like several days. Sometimes the same day I'm able to get stuff to our investigators, as long as the authorization's in place and barring no issues with the extraction, download, that type of thing. I can sometimes do same day, several days to several weeks. It just depends, and that you might hear the word depends a lot if you have questions, because this field is very dependent on phone models, software, etc., etc. Sometimes we get a phone that's not immediately supported by the tools that we have, because it's a constant cat and mouse game. So Apple will release a new software update for their phone. And then it takes 3 to 4 months for these companies to get release an update that supports the extraction of that particular software. So sometimes we get a device that isn't quite supported yet. We get authorization. We basically just keep it on power until those companies release an update for me to be able to get into the phone. So sometimes that takes a while. I included some duties on the handout here. It encompasses all kinds of things. So seizure of devices, that would fall on me sometimes. Depends. A lot of the times that falls on our frontline uniform officers. In any given investigation, they might come across a phone. If someone's arrested and they have grounds to believe there might be evidence on the phone, they can seize it then, and then we just store it until we can get a judge or justice to sign off on viewing that data. Triaging is just, we have a certain storage space of phones. I have to kind of manage which phones need to stay on power, which can be turned off and stored in regular property in our vault, which need to be analyzed sooner rather than later, that type of thing. Continuity, that kind of ties in with that as well. We just need to make sure that we know where the phone is at all times, whether it needs to be on power. That's a very important thing in digital forensics, especially with cell phones. For them, it's important we keep them in the state. If it's seized and it's on and locked, it's important we keep it on power and don't have that phone reset, just based on, I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but how encryption works with modern smartphones. The more we can get much more data if the phone is kept on power in the state that it was seized in. If it's been unlocked at least one time since it's been turned on, which is most of the case when we get a phone that's on, we're able to get way more data. So that storage, that ties into that as well. So data extraction can take a few different forms. Like I said, if we have a seized phone as a part of an investigation, that we get a search warrant to examine that phone, I can extract data then. We can also do a consent search as well. So if a victim of a crime comes in, or a witness that comes in, they have important evidence on their phone. It could be conversations, pictures, videos, etc. That would be evidence of a criminal offense. They can consent to me extracting that data from the phone, and it's much more forensically sound for the courts to get the data that way than them kind of haphazardly taking screenshots of messages and videos and having to piece that all together. And so that's an option as well. Data verification, that comes after the extraction piece. The software generates something called a hash value, and I won't get into the specifics of that either, but it ends up kind of being like a fingerprint for that data. So I have to verify that remains intact throughout the process, and that just goes, that helps with the court proceedings down the line. Data analysis is the kind of the heavy one. Once we get the data, it's been verified, it could take days or weeks to go through it. If you can imagine modern smartphones these days, like the newest iPhones, you can get up to, I believe it's 256 gigabytes storage on that now, and that's a lot of pictures, videos, conversations, locations, search history, etc. And it just takes time to kind of sift through and decide what's relevant. The reporting comes along with that as well after the fact. It's important that for the whole process to be documented, just for the court proceedings. And advising on ever-changing best practices. And it is ever-changing in digital forensics. Recommendations change all the time based on new software coming out, new technology. If you can imagine the leaps and bounds from the newest iPhone versus, 6, 7, 8 years ago. The capabilities are entirely different. How they store data is different, and it's changing constantly. So sometimes it requires different recommendations to be sent out, and I'm working with the chief and deputy on kind of updating our policy when it comes to digital devices, and to kind of bring that to the most up-to-date information that we have currently. On the second page, I have some basic statistics here. I did up a quick graph that kind of shows the increase in warrants that have had to be written to devices over the last, since 2017 anyway. You'll notice in 2020 there was quite a spike, and that was a year with some pretty major investigations in CID, and that year was a bit atypical, as you can see the years surrounding it. But you can notice 2023 was even more warrants written to devices than 2020, and 2023 represented a more typical year of investigations, and it was also the first year that Detective Shute, the street crime, was fully operational. And with his types of investigations, a lot of it's focused on illicit drugs, and with those investigations we often see evidence on devices. It's not like it used to be, where you would find things like debt lists and things like that on sticky notes and notebooks. Now it's mostly on phones, like in the notes section or somewhere like that. Or another thing we see often in those investigations is all the new messaging apps that talk about encryption so much. So a lot of people think that the messages that they send on these apps are totally encrypted and no one can view them. That's not really the case. So what we can get from phones is very valuable, what they're doing on those apps. So it's helpful to have this for sure. Since I was operational in October 2023, I've had some hand in analyzing, extracting, etc., about 33 devices. And as I've explained, the time invested in each of those varies quite a bit. A very standard one with no issues can take a few hours. If there's errors and things that need to be troubleshooted, and yeah, so I'm sure you're wondering what type of data we can get from phones. A lot. I've listed some very basic stuff, like things that you would expect, like messages, so iMessages, text messages, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, that type of thing. Those feature pretty prominently in most investigations, as well as images, photographs, videos, GIFs. Those are all stored as well. And then obviously the internet search and browsing history, you can imagine how that can be useful to investigations too. And even data that isn't necessarily, it's not just we're looking for pictures of drugs, right? It might be that we have information that a crime happened at a certain period of time. Even the innocuous data that you might get surrounding that time, like whether it's health data or location data, something that would put them in the area or help prove that they were using that device in around the time where something occurred. That's all helpful as well. So it can paint a pretty significant picture of what someone was doing at any given time. And the software available now is getting more powerful every day. So some of the other kind of data that we can get, documents on phones, PDFs, Word documents, passwords, all kinds of health data, and that's very dependent. All this data is very dependent on many different things, but on a full extraction, you're able to get health data, steps, heart rate, application usage logs, so you can see what app was active at any given time. You can get metadata about pictures and images that tell you when, where an image was captured, by what camera on the phone it was captured, at what time. You can also get power logs when the phone was reset or set up again. Cloud storage settings that, especially with iCloud, can complicate things these days, and having some idea of how data is transferred to iCloud can assist in investigations as well. General device settings, it sounds insignificant, but in some cases, those settings paired with 6 or 7 other data points can really paint a picture of how someone's using that device at any given time. So, in conclusion, all of this, cell phones and devices, computers, tablets, they're such a huge part of our lives now, and having the ability to view the data on them and get that evidence for the court, it's able to save the court's time. It often leads to guilty pleas. I don't have any specific statistics on that, and I can't really discuss any investigation that is ongoing right now, but oftentimes analysis of devices leads to guilty pleas just from what we find on there. So with that, I'm open to any questions. I apologize in advance if the answer is it depends, but unfortunately that's just the reality of digital forensics. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. That's a fascinating insight into some of the techniques that are being used in modern criminal investigations. I wonder if either Inika or Matt have a question. Inika.
I have a few,
Okay.
and just to let you know, on a monthly basis, actually, the chief does bring forward, or the CI department, how many devices were seized, and how many led maybe to a guilty plea or something. So as a board, we have really appreciated the work you and your department are doing to expedite, I guess, the guilty pleas and whatever. My question relates a little bit on timing. So there's a person under arrest. I'm trying to get a sense of it.
Sure.
Can a constable right away ask for their cell phone? They're under arrest. Or does that take some time?
No, so what that's called is seizure incident to arrest, and it's an authority that we have. It would kind of be the same as, it's viewed similarly as, just an example, they're under arrest for a drug-related offense and they have a bag of drugs on them. That's evidence of the offense. That can be seized as evidence, incident to arrest. So if that officer believes there's evidence of the offense on that phone, that can be seized immediately. So it's quick that way.
Okay, that was my question, because I was wondering, just a person that's under arrest, your first thought would be, get rid of the cell phone, throw it somewhere,
Right.
Get rid of it so that the evidence isn't available.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't normally happen then, is that correct? You can, generally, it's seized immediately, and you haven't run into problems where the cell phone is no longer available to be seized?
No, it can be seized immediately. We haven't run into any kind of issue like that, but you do raise another point that I didn't get it too deep into, is that sometimes the data on the phones is fairly volatile, and these days it's not hard to send like a wipe signal to a phone. But how we prevent that is through procedures, through seizing the phone, whether it's removing the SIM card or putting it in airplane mode, isolating it from the network, essentially helps prevent any kind of wipe signal being sent to the phone. I've only come across one device so far that had been remotely wiped at some point. I'm not saying process is perfect. Like sometimes phones can just reboot out of nowhere. It depends on the device type, and so data can be lost and wipe signals can be sent through, but we haven't really encountered that very much.
Okay, and so you've seized my phone, let's say,
Okay.
and
Again?
but my question is, and you said, maybe it takes a few weeks, and luckily it's expedited, but my phone is very personal to me. I do all, just like you said, you do all your banking, you do all of your connecting, so that becomes a real issue to people, that it's being seized and they don't have that availability to operate or to connect with people, even if you're on bail or whatever. Is that a problem, or how do you deal with that? I'm sure that the person under arrest would say, when do I get my cell phone back? And do they always get it back if there was a major crime situation? Do people always get their cell phones back?
So it depends. Most of the time they do, yes. So with this capability now, depending on the offense, the specific offense that's being investigated, once I'm done with the phone, it's been, extracted, verified, analyzed, backed up, all that stuff. I verified there's no issues with accessing the data multiple times. Once all that's said and done, the phone can generally be returned, unless it's a set of specific offenses. Sometimes they won't get it back. The time frame for returning it varies pretty widely. We've seen it within a week or two, we're able to get it back, up to several months. It just depends on if the phone is supported by the software that we have. The other thing that sometimes certain access methods to the phone aren't supported for that specific device. So the software has to do something called a brute force on the password. And that's just basically, it tries to crack the password if there is one. And that can take anywhere from 10 minutes to 8 months. It depends on the phone, and iPhones are generally slower because Apple, something they do specifically with their setup of the phone. So it depends. But generally people get them back and reasonably quickly, especially now that we have our own setup. So
If I may, just to sort of add a little bit onto what Detective Constable Butts has provided. I know in his presentation he talked about judicial authorization.
Yes.
Which really is a fancy way of saying a warrant. So I think in relation to your question about person being arrested and a phone being seized, it doesn't mean it ends up back in the office and there's a instant analysis or extraction. That's when there's a pause and the investigators start writing to get a warrant so that they can then begin their search of a device. So in relation to some of your points to your question, how long a device may be in our custody might depend on the offense that we are investigating, the length of time it may require for us to analyze that phone. But again, it's through a justice of the peace or a judge that is giving us the judicial authority or the access to such a device to search. So again, as the detective constable has said, sometimes depending on just what we are looking at and the extent of information that might be on that device, either makes it a shorter type search or a very extended exercise.
And sorry, just to add on to the Chief's point there, in 99.9% of cases where we seize a phone, yes, we have to pause and make sure we get that authorization, the warrant signed by a judge or justice. But a very important thing that having our own unit allows us to do, if necessary, we haven't come across it yet, but in very emergent and exigent situations and investigations, we now have the capability to analyze, depending, again, of course, on the phone software, a phone very, very quickly without a warrant. There's very, very specific situations where that would be allowed, but you know, in certain investigations that are emergent, like God forbid a kidnapping or something like that, where you don't have the time or where it's not practicable to have the time to write a warrant, having this allows us to have that capability where before we would be relying on outside agencies, and whether we could do it or not is just depending on them. So we, like I said, we haven't come across that yet, but it allows us to do it if we had to.
One more question. Snapchat, and a lot of people think, oh, the messages are gone. However, you're able to access that quite readily. Is that correct? With encryption?
Yeah, it depends. It's a lot of it depends on the specific settings the user sets up for that whatever conversation. So I don't readily use Snapchat myself, so I have somewhat of an understanding just through the training that I've had. But so if I have a conversation with this friend, I can set it so that messages disappear after 12 hours or 10 minutes, and that setting can differ for another conversation you have, and you can constantly set the deletion times that varied across conversations, so that heavily influences what I'm able to see. The media portion, so the images, videos that disappear on Snapchat, I'm generally not able to see those. Like once they're gone, they're gone. I can see that something was sent, but I'm not able to view it just because Snapchat, like once that picture deletes itself, it's generally not viewable unless there's specific settings that user has for that conversation, or they save that picture, that type of thing. So Snapchat is, yeah. So.
Thank you. Any questions, Matt?
No specific questions. I think Annika did a great job of covering the bases. I just wanted to say thanks for the excellent presentation. It's cool to see that we're keeping current and following the pillars that we set up in our strat plan for staying on top of emerging technologies. I was kind of shocked that it takes the OPP up to 15 months to get devices back, so being able to do that in a fraction of the time is excellent. So good work, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you again. And on a personal note, I think it's fascinating. I'm a great fan of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, and it's really interesting to see the development in the technologies of evidence collection, from the actual fingerprint to DNA to now digital fingerprints. And I know that when people say watch criminal programs on television, the investigative units now are always, it seems, dealing with the electronic and that, sees the laptop, sees the phone, and it's just interesting to see how even in the popular entertainment, detective mysteries, this is creeping into people's understanding of the trail that we leave with our phones and all our devices. So thank you for that. It's great to see that this is taking place. Any closing remarks by any of the police present?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to draw out just a couple of points. I know that Chris talked a little bit about them in regards to some of the training requirements. For the board's information, he attended a 6-week course down at the Canadian Police College, which sort of was really the launch point, providing him with this area of expertise, and I'll maybe just let him talk a little bit about some of the training requirements.
Yeah, so it also, that course back in November, it was 3 weeks. That's the main one that through the Canada Police College that is kind of the standard for the chief said the launch point for something like this. However, there was significant preparation for that course, including a generalized IT exam, not related to policing at all. You just needed a certificate that's widely used in the IT field. I think it's just for them to kind of weed out the people that, because it's not an intro to computers course, that you have to go in with some understanding of computers and software. So the preparation for that, I had to get that certificate. That took some time. While I was doing that, I was doing courses specific to the software that we bought, the Celebrate, as they send the software and 3 or 4 courses along with that. And it's been constant ever since then. I've been taking courses seemingly on a monthly, every other month, since February of last year. So the training is constant, and because there's just so much to know between all the different platforms and different device types and software versions. Like you got for computers, it's Windows, Linux, Apple, device, and cell phones, it's generally Apple or Android, but in each one of those, there's different manufacturers and Android and software versions, and yeah, it's been quite a bit, but they've been very supportive, so I'm fairly passionate about this stuff, and it's been good. So.
Thanks for summarizing that. Just to end on a couple of other points. Again, I want to give my appreciation to the Police Services Board for the overwhelming support when we brought this initiative forward. Substantial investment in equipment and software and training, as you've heard. Chris, I know, alluded to how we were conducting business prior to this. Utilizing not only the OPP but other services regionally in London was also available for us. But certainly, I think he has outlined the dire need that we had to be able to do these investigations in a timely manner, so that we could get information to the courts for proper disclosure within the timelines that are required. That being said, I do know that Chris is still working in collaboration with a lot of other policing partners as they encounter various sort of roadblocks, new technologies. So I know that there is a lot of information sharing that continues on within that network of investigators. And again, I want to, I guess, maybe just end on thanking Chris for undertaking this work. It's a side of investigations that isn't for the faint of heart at times. There are certain types of investigations that aren't things that you want to see, want to hear. And again, I know that this board is very supportive of our organization and the members in our organization, and ensuring that as we continue to conduct these very sensitive investigations, that there is supports. And again, I say that with the HR director sitting beside me, because it's all part of the overall package of things that we're experiencing in the sector. And again, maybe I'll leave it at that. And again, thanks to the board for their support.
You're certainly welcome, and we do hope that the expertise that Chris brings to the department is being passed throughout the departments, disseminating within the department as they work on cases, and that, of course, there's a timeline to make sure that if there's an opportunity for someone else on the force to be trained in this, that we do so that we have some redundancy. Redundancy is a good thing, just deeper bench strength, rather than having only one person in the department have the knowledge. It always helps if there's a few people who are coming along and learning as they go. Okay, with that said then, I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder to accept this presentation as information. Thank you. Moved by Member Hahn and seconded by Member Paul. All those in favor? 3 hands. hands go in the air. Thank you very much. And DC Buzz, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the presentation, the rest of the meeting, but if you wish to leave, that's certainly understandable. As exciting as this meeting may be, you might have other duties. So.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
Thank you very much. With that said, we'll move on to section 6, communications. And I guess before we do the recommendation, are there any of these items that members Hahn or Hall would like to pull for comments or questions? Member Hahn?
6.1.6.
Okay, thank you. We can do that. With that said then, can I have that the communications items be received for information with the exception of 6.1.6?
We still want to receive all of them for.
We're going to receive, pardon me, we're going to receive all of them for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by member Hall, seconded by member Hahn. All those in favor, thank you. And speaking to, speaking to number 6.16, member Hahn.
Thank you. And in regards to the education and awareness period, there has been really some significant changes to the towing and vehicle storage oversight. I know it's been extended to June 30th. My comment is not a question, but knowing that the public would have quite an interest in these significant changes, especially there was a little tip point that says know your rights when getting a tow. And I was wondering if maybe the chief or your department would look at doing some media releases and maybe having this on the police website or bringing it towards the H-Dispatcher banners so that they could just use it as information for the public, because it's pretty significant.
Through the chair to Member Hahn, that's an excellent comment, and we will certainly bring that forward to Constable McIntyre to ensure that we get some of those talking points.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on any of those items of communication? Okay, so I guess it moves on now to 6.2, and maybe I'll have the chief speak to this. The Zone 6 notice of meeting notice, I guess, May 9th, 2024. Does the chief wish to speak to that?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So I think most on the board are aware the OACP and the OAPSB down in Zone 6, which goes from Elmer as far, I'll call it westerly, as to Windsor and LaSalle. There are 2 meetings annually, one in the spring, one in the fall. It is generally a combined meeting at the start where there is a presenter that sort of speaks to both sides of the meeting, and then they break away for their own business meetings after that. They're generally half-day meetings. The notice here is that the next one is scheduled for May the 9th in Elmer, and so the organizers, which is in this case obviously Elmer Police, are just looking for some RSVP so that they can plan accordingly. So a very brief discussion sort of before the meeting that I will reply on behalf of the deputy and myself to the OACP, and I believe that the board secretary is going to canvass the members to find out who is interested in attending, so that she can then reply back to the organizer in Elmer.
Excellent. Any questions on that by members Hahn or Hall? Seeing none, we'll just, that's just an information item, no motion required. Moving on to 7, review of monthly police service reports. I guess the recommendation is the monthly report 7.1 to 7.5 be received for information. And before we, so member Hahn moves, member Hall, I suppose, thank you, seconds. And all those in favor, all in favor, and at this point, thank you very much. And for this, we'll move it over to the chief for his comments.
I think I can be somewhat brief here. The reports are there. I'm sort of, I guess, willing or hoping that if there's any specific questions in relation to any of the reports, either myself or the deputy would certainly be happy to take those and provide a response back.
Any questions from members? None from Matt? Any from you, Innika? Okay, the floor is yours.
Yes. Yes, just let me get my report online for a minute. It relates to the lost hours and training report. And I would like to, sorry, got a little bit of a cold. I would like to ask if we, at the next board meeting, could maybe have an update in regards to the WSIB. Maybe the Director of Finance and HR who's here, just an update to the board on the members who remain on WSIB leave, and it's been over 4 years, and maybe also in regards to the effect on premium rate setting, because it'll affect the premium rate for the WSIB. We're maybe a bit more familiar with experience rating, the word surcharges. So if we could have an update on that section.
If I may provide a response through the chair to Member Hahn. Myself and the Director of HR have continuous conversations regarding those two files, and I'm sure that we could probably bring a update to the next board meeting. It may, I think, qualify for camera status, but that's sort of the nature of, I think, of the area that we're talking about.
Just to interrupt, I'll just ask Member Hahn then to put that in the form of a motion.
So I'll bring forward a formal motion to receive an updated report on the WSIB claims over the last, I guess, 4 years, and the effect on the costing.
Okay, with that said, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Member Hall. And now it's on the floor for discussion. Any more comments or questions on that before I call the motion?
If I may, Chair, I just really, and it's more of a comment, I just wanted to give the board an update. I was at a recent OACP board meeting, and we had a presentation from the chief from Cobourg Police Service, who in his update indicated there is a working group that has currently been drawn together that has representation from the OACP, the OAPSB, WSIB, along with some of the association representatives who are, I'm going to say, in the early stages of trying to find a better format and responses to WSIB type claims, because I think that there is a sense of frustration amongst all of the involved parties, and so it is a very important issue that they want to find some efficiencies and move it in a bit of a different direction, so that there is resolutions that are arrived at sooner rather than the long delays that seem to accompany a lot of the claims that are currently on the books.
Okay, thank you, Chief. With that said, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Members Hahn and Hall, myself, is passed. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to Section 8. Items from the police services, 8.1, automated speed enforcement. Yes, Member Hahn?
I had one more question or comment.
Okay, absolutely.
And it was still in regards to this report. And I was interested in, well, first of all, I wasn't sure what the acronym SOCO training was, but I believe it's Scenes of Crime Officer Training. And do most uniform members take this training? Because I could see that being quite important or basic to a uniform member.
Through the chair to member on. So we currently have, I believe, 4 trained SOCOs. It is a 2-week course where it is offered by the Ontario Police College. Unfortunately, they host it once per year currently in August, which makes it very difficult to schedule. So our last 2 we sent to Toronto Police Service, who hosted our members graciously. And so it's 2 weeks, they come back and they're trained. It is a specialized skill that you need to use, or you lose the ability to do it. And it'd be nice to have 1 member per shift, and I think that's our goal. It just takes time to get there with some of the recent people leaving. Constable Paul Westendorp, he was a SOCO, so he's now seconded the OBC, so we've lost that member. But with this new member just recently trained, we kind of offset that. So.
And in fact, sorry, just in addition to that, we also have a member who is trained as a forensic identification officer, who will be returning from an extended leave she was on. So she's, I would say, a little more skilled in the area of forensics. So the SOCO members, the Scenes of Crime Officer, you were correct in the acronym. They're sort of that initial response, identify, obviously collect evidence, record evidence they can, or what they can. But obviously if it's a deeper dive that is required, we would then sort of bring in the identification officer. And again, as the deputy had said, our target is to try to line someone up with each work group.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Back to 8.1, automated speed enforcement recommendation. The board received for the report POL 20024-11 for information. So I'd ask for a mover and a seconder on that. Member Hall and Member Han, all in favor. And before we vote on it, then we'll ask if there are any questions about this, or if there's a statement to be made by the chief or deputy chief.
Yeah, so I can comment on that. This is in response to, in particular, the mayor's request for information about automated speed enforcement. So Simcoe Police just recently went through this. They did have speed signs similar to what we have within the municipality, where an example would be Head Street, where it shows the speed and tells you if you're exceeding, flashes pretty colors at you. They've been very effective in data gathering, and it shows that I believe the average speed on Head Street was 46 kilometers an hour. I believe that's what it was. Obviously, there's the odd person who ignores the speed signs and drives a little faster, but the average is 46. A lot of that has to do with time of day as well. So during the day when school's going, the speeds are definitely lower than, say, in the evening when school isn't involved. To touch on the automated speed enforcement, what was made clear to me from Staff Sergeant Phillips and so Simcoe is that this is a municipal council decision and not a police service decision, and it should be them that determines whether they wish to proceed with the automated speed enforcement. In my report, I laid out some of the specific ideas behind it, such as using a true evidence-based reason for implementing automated speed enforcement and not just maybe a public reaction to, you know, it's in front of my house and people are driving too fast, when in fact that's not the case, such as on Head Street. So my suggestion would be that this goes back to the the traffic committee, and it can be addressed through them.
Member Hahn?
And that was interesting to know it's municipally governed, and obviously Head Street does have a school on it. So if that might be with evidence-based data, might be something that the municipality could move forward on. Since, as you said, the average speed is 46 in a 40, so a lot of people are going quite a bit faster maybe too. But what I wanted to bring forward, and I think this is a culture, and it's not adopted yet, at least not in Ontario, but I know that in Europe, and specifically the Netherlands, they have a speeding effectiveness in all areas, and what they do is they rotate these speed monitors throughout rural areas, throughout the cities, and no one speeds in, or generally speeds in, especially I can bring it forward to the Netherlands, because it's so prevalent in there that you're not sure which road is currently being monitored, because they can bring those monitors to any road. And what has happened is when some of the visitors from the Netherlands come over here, they're going, we can't believe the excessive speeds on rural roads, highways. They're just so used to following the speed limit. So I think at this point it's not part of our culture yet because of different aspects, but I could see that trend might start to come and be more prevalent in Ontario to reduce fatalities and to reduce or to improve safety.
If I can respond to that. So currently in Ontario, the only two places are community safety zones and school zones.
Yes.
They have to be signed as such, and they also, if you're going to establish either red light cameras or photo radar, you need to indicate basically before the camera that it's that area. It's definitely not like the Netherlands where you can put them in random locations. It has to be signed properly.
You want to talk about the
Okay, so as chair then, I'm seeing that there's going to be a pathway for this issue to move from the police service board over to council, the municipal side. Is that correct, Chief?
That is correct. Sorry, I'm just doing some hand signals here with the deputy. I was just, I would like him to sort of maybe just address the board in regards to some of the feedback the community members might give in relation to identifying a threshold speed limit and the, for lack of better terms, the blowback you might get from your community in relation to that.
Yeah, so also in my conversations with Staff Sergeant Phillips is that, and again, covered off in my report about the setting of appropriate speed limits, and then the actual ticketing threshold of these devices, and that if the ticketing threshold is set so low that everybody is getting a ticket because they're driving 80 kilometers an hour, they think it's an 80 zone, but it's technically a 50 zone. There can definitely be some pushback from the community members themselves, not realizing that they're in a reduced speed zone in areas where they normally wouldn't be.
So as chair, the pathway to the municipal side, rather than having it sent from police service board to the traffic committee, as chair, I'd rather see a presentation made to full council by representatives from the police department, and then council, after hearing that presentation, could decide whether to A, send it to the traffic committee, or B, decide to act as council. to take direct action. But I think this is a very high priority item in our community. And I know in the strategic plans that we're doing with both the municipality and the police board, we've heard a lot about this. So I think rather than sending it to a municipal committee, I think we could probably consider moving it over to council. And that would be something where there'd be a presentation made to council, just outlining the issue, the pathways and the things that can happen. And as far as if one of our members here would make that motion, I'm in the chair. And you know, we maybe say that this take place within the next 2 months, something like that. And that would be something you could set up with the clerk. So I'd be looking for a motion to that effect, that police administration make a presentation to council regarding automated speed enforcement. Would that be fair enough? Within the next 2 months. Member Hall, Member Hahn, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Is that okay, Chief and Deputy Chief?
I was just going to make a suggestion that because we have representation on the traffic committee, if perhaps that it's part of a discussion at their next meeting. I just think there are some elements to this presentation that, for example, the administration of a program such as this in relation to contracting of building services, what that looks like, the financial impacts, you know, are something that I think that the deputy has made very clear that this is really an area that the municipality needs to take the ownership of, and not the police services board.
Okay.
And I'm anticipating that a presentation to council, they may be wanting to have some sort of information as part of a presentation on that element of a program. And I think what is being suggested is that is maybe some legwork that could be undertaken or should be undertaken by, say, someone from the roads department or applicable area of governance here in the municipality.
Yeah. I guess my issue is that as police service board chair, I guess I don't have the ability to make a recommendation that a municipal committee make a presentation. Our motion can only cover what our police administration does. So I'm just trying to find a pathway to move it from this room, well, I mean from police service board, to being in front of council.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy, and both either one of us or both of us are more than prepared to make that presentation to council. I'm just wondering if part of your recommendation includes providing direction to the chief or the deputy to engage the traffic committee to further this discussion.
So we could amend the motion to say, and members of the traffic committee to make a presentation to council.
I think that would be fair since I sit as a member of the traffic.
Exactly. But it also allows you to include others on that committee in the presentation. Would members Hahn and Hall accept that? They do, and moved, seconded. The amendment has been approved. Okay, thank you. I realize you're on it, so it's just a matter of how do we exercise the request from police service board without stepping on municipal toes. Okay, thank you very much. With that, let's see. I think we have to call the motion. Did I call the motion? Mm-hmm. We did. Okay, so fine. Thank you very much. And number 9, inquiries or comments by members. Let's go with our remote member first. Member Paul, do you have an inquiry or comment?
No inquiries or comments for me, thank you.
Okay, over to Member Hahn. Do you have any inquiries or comments?
None from me.
And I've spoken far too much, so there's none from me either. With that, we're going to go to item number 10, which is in-camera matters. The board may move into closed session to discuss a personal matter regarding an identifiable individual and a procedural matter as permitted by Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 35(4) of the Police Services Act and the Council Procedure Bylaw. And the recommendation is the board move into closed session at 11:04. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Member Hahn and Hall. approved. And of course, Ron Leclerc, you are allowed to stay in our in-camera session as well. With that said, we Okay, everyone, welcome back. We have finished our in-camera, and I will report on the closed session. Essentially, the board approved the direction on a personnel matter. And do I need a mover in a second to approve that? Okay, moved by member Hahn, seconded by member Hall, approving the fact that the board approved a direction on a personnel matter on the in-camera. Okay, thank you very much. And that moves us to the scheduled meetings. Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024 at 10 a.m., Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 10 a.m., Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 at 10 a.m. That moves us to adjournment. Recommendation of the April 16th, 2024 Police Services Board meeting adjourned at...
Sorry, Mr. Chair,
Oh.
if I may, sorry.
Okay.
I missed it a little bit earlier with the comment section, but
Close.
that's fine. Just three quick points.
Yep.
I just wanted to again inform the board, now that the 2024 budget has been approved at the municipal level, both myself and the deputy are going to be starting to format not only the 2025, but really take an approach at a multi-year budget perspective. I was, the second point is I was at the most recent strategic plan meeting that the municipal council had, and during the exercise they identified some of their short-term goals, short-term being perhaps in this term of council, and there was a very strong support for the police building annex, which you will certainly see in our budget preparations, specifically for 2025 as a targeted date to get that plan to the board in hopes of their support and approval for the 2025 budget year. And then the third comment actually just kind of relates in relation to the schedule of meetings. Both myself and the deputy had committed to a Middlesex County event on June 18th. And so I'm just wondering if there is maybe another date available, whether that's the Wednesday or a week prior or post, that may fit into the calendar.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, then, for scheduled meetings, perhaps we could suggest Tuesday, June the 25th, 24. June the 25th, I don't know of anything on that date, but we can certainly move it tentatively to June the 25th. Seeing as you're both not available on June 18th, I would imagine one of you may be more likely to be available on June 25th.
I can commit to the 25th of June. I'm open on that date.
Okay, well, let's just tentatively change that, and we'll have to check with the mayor and others to see if we have quorum. But we can go to June 25th for now. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, and I forgot to mention the strategic planning. I was also most pleased to see that council went with the idea that short term in the sense of planning things was made to coincide with the end of the mandate of the current council. So the October or November of 2026 would be the end of the short term, and council decided to move the renovation of the police headquarters into the short term category. So it seems that there's a commitment, if nothing else, to commit to breaking ground or starting and possibly finishing within the term of this council, subject to exigent circumstances. Who knows what will happen. So that was fun. So anyway, in my keenness to adjourn, I had gone just to the point saying that the April 16th, 2024 Police Service Board adjourned at 11:23, moved by Member Hall in Florida, in heaven, okay, and seconded by Member Hahn. All those in favor? Fantastic. And the weather's